Hi, I'm Chris Sorrentino, and this is Al's Garage in the making. It's been difficult uh, past several months. Seen a lot of turmoil on my part, uh, which hasn't stopped. But I've found out that people don't like 68-year-old men who cry. It makes them feel uncomfortable, and when that happens, bad things happen. they don't. They think you're gonna lose it and kill everybody if a grown man cries. So they call the police. And anyway, I just want to fill you in on kind of what's been going on since you last heard from me. Long story. I was supposed to go to Operation Mend, as you know. It took instead of 2 weeks, 2 months went by, and I was no closer to getting in. And that's the place I really needed to be because of my my illness, my long COVID or whatever it is that's going on. Nobody seems to believe. Few people seem to believe that I'm actually sick. They think it's psychological. It's all in my mind. And so when you go and lose it and start bawling your eyes out, and you're 68 years old, people freak out, and bad things happen. And bad things happened. So we were Operation Mend. Got fed up with them, so I decided, okay, I got to find something else. So I found another program, and I found another program in San Antonio, Texas. I won't mention the name, but a reputable program for veterans with combat veterans with PTSD. So I booked a flight to San Antonio. They got me in finally through TRICARE for Life. And so I got on a plane to go to San Antonio to this program for 28 days. Thought I did everything right. Went to, I'm disabled. I'm 90% disabled. Got several problems, but, with the health problems that I've had, I'm just unable to walk long distances, and airports are a nightmare for me, especially, carrying bags around, so on and so forth. So I decided to do everything right. So I asked KLM, Royal Dutch airline that I was flying, get me to the gate, okay? Get me to the gate, get me on the plane, and do that at every airport until I get to San Antonio, So I get on the early morning flight from Faro in Portugal to Amsterdam. Get to Amsterdam. They meet me. These two young ladies in one of those carts, electric carts, meet me and take me to my next gate, which is my flight to San Antonio. Well, I thought they were taking me to my gate. They pulled into some parking place somewhere and said, "We'll be right back." They left. And I was left sitting in this cart by myself for a while. And I said, what's going on? They didn't seem to be coming back. So I had to look around, try to find my gate. Okay, found my gate. And the plane was already boarding. It was almost already fully boarded. I should have been one of the first ones on the plane, being disabled and having the transportation taking me, and with the goal of getting me physically on the plane. But that didn't happen. So I started freaking out. Got a lot going on, and I've been crying, releasing a lot of cortisol, let's say, for the last a few months. it's just been a mess. So I get up to the gate, and there's this guy with this big handlebar mustache there, and I said, what's going on? Boarding the plane, and blah, blah, and he started being a jerk, and I started freaking out, and I started getting upset, and I was crying pretty hard, and calls the cops. Amsterdam police show up, and let's say they manhandled me a bit. Took me in a back area and had their way with me, and really seemed to enjoy it. A couple of them in particular. One of them made fun of me about the fat old man. I was naked at the time, so fat old man with a dolphin tattoo. He was saying, yeah, exactly what I needed to hear. And so they took me to a psych hospital in Amsterdam, which I was released the next day when Elisa, I called my wife to come help me get out of this mess and get me to San Antonio so I could get to treatment. Okay, so she shows up on the next morning. I see a judge there, and they say, okay, you're fine. You're free to go. KLM was very good about making sure that I didn't have to buy a new ticket and all that kind of stuff. But still had to pay for Lisa's airfare and everything to Amsterdam and on to San Antonio. Turns out when she gets to Amsterdam, she found out that her mom had a massive stroke. Go figure. Okay. Still alive, but not knowing what her condition was, we traveled to San Antonio. Okay. Got to San Antonio. I lived in San Antonio, my first duty station. I was there for 3 years, a long time ago, and been back many times. But got to San Antonio, got to this facility for combat veterans, the PTSD 28-day program. And about midnight, I got there. And it took them 5 hours, most of the time just sitting around waiting for people to do nothing. 5 hours to get me processed. Finally got in a room and in bed at 5 o'clock in the morning. Remember that I've been up for a couple days, had very little sleep, time difference, 8-hour time difference from Amsterdam to San Antonio. I was exhausted. Okay, 5 o'clock, I get to bed. 8 o'clock. This poor young lady comes in and wakes me up, and I was not very happy. I said, you got to be kidding me! 3 hours sleep, and went out and saw what the program was all about, and it was like arts and crafts for excuse my choice of words, arts and crafts for the mentally defective, let's say. I won't use the other term that you can't use anymore, but for the mental defects. And I was very sure from the very beginning that this was going to be a complete waste of time. 28 days of doing this kind of stuff. No therapy going on. No doctors coming in. I said, okay, that's enough. I'm leaving. And my wife agreed. She said, yeah, let's go. And so the backup plan was to go to Jacksonville, Florida. We were actually thinking about moving to Jacksonville, Florida because of the Mayo Clinic. The Mayo Clinic's there. Best hospital in the United States, best hospital maybe in the world, huh? The Mayo Clinic. Yeah, they got them up in Minneapolis, in Minnesota, but they also got this big one in Jacksonville, Florida. So, again, make a plan. Elisa, by this time, extremely worried about her mother. She gets on a plane to go back to Italy. I left an hour later from San Antonio to Jacksonville. I had a rental car lined up. I had an Airbnb lined up for a month, paid for, over $2,000. Okay. And I was going to go to to the ER at the Mayo Clinic and tell them to help me, get me some help for this long COVID. I can't, I'm going to hurt myself or somebody else. And I've come, I've had so many instances where shit has gone wrong because of this problem with my brain that, I just can't be too careful. So got it all lined up. So Lisa gets on a plane, goes to Italy. I go to Jacksonville, get to the airport, rental car, no problem. It's late, 10:30. I drive to my Airbnb. And there's no sign of anybody there. So I get on the Airbnb app and the messages and stuff and saying, hey, well, what's going on? How do I get into my apartment? And the streets are dead. It's part of town, kind of iffy part of town. I had no idea where I was. This guy who I purchased this Airbnb from, and he readily accepted my $2,000 plus for a month, told me that he needed me to sign another agreement. And I said, no, that's not the way Airbnb works. I submitted the request, you accepted it, I paid, done deal, end the conversation. Well, this guy was being a total dick. So, 10:30 at night, wouldn't let me in the apartment, okay, that I had paid for. So, got nowhere to go. What the hell am I going to do in a town I've never been in with no place to stay? So I started driving around, I was pissed. Started driving around Jacksonville, had no idea where I was. I went and drank a bunch of coffee and finally, 7:30 in the morning, I said, well, I might as well go to the Mayo Clinic, the famous and wonderful Mayo Clinic, and they're gonna help me. So I parked my car out in front of the Mayo Clinic, in my rental car, and I went inside, and I was exhausted again. Been up for at least 24 hours, stressed to the max because my great plan once again fell apart through no fault of my own. And so I walked in there and I guess I just let it all go. I just let it release and it all came out. And immediately they think this guy's crazy. Okay. 68-year-old man bawling his eyes out. He's got to be fucking crazy, right? Okay. He's not sick, so we'll drug him up, hold him for 24 hours, which they did. They didn't want to deal with me. They didn't want to get me any help. They just wanted to get rid of me. So they drugged me, held me for 24 hours against my will, and then they sent me over to a behavioral health facility, a mental hospital called River Point, on a 72-hour hold. Okay, I go to the Mayo Clinic for help, all right, from Portugal, flew there from Portugal at great expense, rented a car, rented an apartment for a month for $2,000, and they said that I went to the ER and told them that I was suicidal and homicidal. Why would I go through all that effort, all that expense, have a plan to stay there for a month and get help from the Mayo Clinic, and then tell them that I want to kill myself and others? On the form for the 72-hour hold, they put that I was not only suicidal, but I was homicidal. And apparently they thought that I needed detox for some reason, and I had not had any alcohol in weeks, if not months. And so they sent me over to this place and put me on a 72-hour hold, and my freedom was taken away just for trying to get some help from the Mayo Clinic. And then this place, River Point, was an absolute nightmare. My doctor, Dr. Bhatti, this Indian guy was the biggest asshole I ever met in my life. Should not be working with patients. Should not be a psychiatrist. He maybe should be working in a lab somewhere because he does not know how to interact with human beings and does not know how to listen. So, I've got this crazy story that I'm telling them, and they're having trouble believing it, and it's been pretty fucking crazy. And I could see how someone might, say, is this possible? But Dr. Bhatti didn't want to hear my side of the story. I talked to him twice, once for 3 or 4 minutes in the hall, and another one time for 1 or 2 minutes in the hall before he extended my 72-hour hold. And the guy likes to talk, and he refuses to listen. So whenever I tried to interject and give my side of the story and tell him what exactly had been going on, he didn't want to hear anything about it. So he didn't do his due diligence, had no idea why I was there other than what the idiots at the Mayo Clinic said. And so he extended me there. I was there for a total of 7 days, so 8 days total, 24 hours at the Mayo Clinic, and then 7 days at this other place. When he extended me after the 72-hour hold, I filed a writ of habeas corpus, which is something you file with the court if you think you're being held against illegally, against your will, which I was. My civil rights and liberties were taken away. These people were doing no therapy. They did not, I told them I was supposed to have a physical exam when I got there. I told them about my injuries that I received from the Portuguese police and the Amsterdam police, who twisted my body in ways it's not supposed to be twisted into. Nothing physical, I was in pain the entire time. They wouldn't let me talk to my wife, who was in Italy with her, mother at her deathbed. First, they refused to charge the phone, so I could only, talk to her for a few seconds. And then they refused to give me the phone altogether. And they didn't seem to understand that Italy is it's a different continent. It's a different country. It's a different, you can't just go on, because they had 3 or 4 phones in the hallways, where you could call anywhere in the States, and patients were able to do that at the specified times for telephone calls. But the only way I could talk to my wife was via WhatsApp on my phone. That's the only way we could communicate. And when they did give me my phone, they gave it to me for just a few minutes, sometimes screaming at me to get off the phone. That's a whole nother story. But anyway, I wasn't able to talk to my wife, hardly at all. She didn't know what was going on with me. This Kendra, the social worker, was communicating with her via email, and she would not respond to my wife. My wife's sending these emails, why is my husband there? What's going on? What's he doing in a mental hospital? Answer me, all these emails. And they refused to answer. So what happened was, after I filed the writ of habeas corpus, and they knew I was serious and that I knew that I didn't need to be there, they got on the defensive and started retaliating against me. So that part of the retaliation was these taking away my phone privileges, not allowing me to talk to my wife, which is, I think, against the law. I asked to see my medical records. There's a poster on the wall that tells you what your rights are, okay? And you have the right to review your medical chart, your medical records. I asked to see my medical records. They refused that. And finally, and I don't even know if they even filed the writ of habeas corpus with the court, to be honest with you. I don't think they did. I just think they held me there illegally. And before a court date could come up, they decided to let me go. All of a sudden, their lawyers said, "Oh, well, he's not a harm to himself or anybody else anymore. We magically cured him, so he can be released." So that's not the end of it. I had to have a plan to get out. My wife's in Italy. My oldest son, Matt, living in our house here in Washougal, where I am now. And I called him to set up a plan for, tell him whatever you got to tell him to get me the fuck out of here and get me home. And he says, I don't need a roommate. He's living in our house rent free. I call him in severe distress, begging him to do the right thing and help me to get out of the hospital, first of all, and to get home and to get some proper medical treatment. And he says, I don't want a roommate. I said, well, Matt, if you don't want a roommate, maybe you better go find another place to live, because you're living in our fucking house rent free. So, we can do this the easy way or we can do it the hard way. Well, I guess he wanted to do it the hard way, because when I got home a couple days ago, he was gone. I have no idea where he is. He left the house in a fucking mess, cleaned out the refrigerator and the pantry, left me no food, left me without internet. I had to go buy Wi-Fi and everything else. So on top of all this, my kids turned their backs on me, and I've talked about this before. They did so at Christmas, and ever since then. My youngest son sent me a message saying that I'm glad I'm never going to have to, see you again, or something along those lines. That's Nick. And he lived here for 4 years, rent free. And countless other things that where I've been more than generous with both my sons, and this is the way they treat me. My youngest son says, I never want to see you again, fuck you. And my oldest son says, I don't need any roommates, you're on your own, fuck off. Okay, so I never thought that my kids would betray me. I never thought that those two men would turn their backs on me. And that devastates me. And I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to be a 68-year-old bawling, blubbering mess. But that fucking hurts, 68 years old. Found out, just in October that my dad isn't really my biological father, I was raised Italian, Sorrentino, Italian all the way, 0% Italian blood, according to 23andMe. Quite a shock to the system, and then your kids turn their backs on you. The only one person in this world that really gives a fuck about me and is a saint, and I have put through living hell, is my wife Elisa, and if it wasn't for her, I don't know what I'd do. If it wasn't for Elisa, I don't know if I'd be here right now. And I'm lucky to be here right now after all the shit that I've been through over the past couple months. And you haven't even heard the whole story. So, and I'll write a book and you can read about it if you want. But anyway, that's the way things have been going. So here I am. I'm back in Portland, Oregon area, at my home, which I'm trying to clean up a little bit at a time because I have no energy. And it's, like I said, my son left a mess. Thank God for the rheumatologist at the VA in Portland. I swear, and I've sworn that I will never go back to another VA facility again. The VA is so broken. They've put me through so much trauma in the past several months. I don't want to deal with them ever again. But there's this one rheumatologist, and she's got two staff members who are fantastic at the Portland VA, the big hospital, the medical center. And so she and her staff were able to get me an appointment in 2 days on Tuesday. Got me in very fast because she knows what's been going on, and she saw me and had some ideas for further evaluation when I left in October. But anyway, that's the best news I've had in a long time, is that I got an appointment to see her. Hopefully we can get things on track and find out what the hell is going on with me, because my brain doesn't work and I've got no energy. I can't do anything. And I stay in the house not only because I have no energy, because I don't want to get in trouble. If I go out and interact with people and somebody does something wrong, God knows what I could end up doing, and I don't want to hurt myself or someone else. That's the last thing I would ever want. But with this fucked up brain that I have, thanks to the Janssen vaccine and Johnson & Johnson, I do some crazy shit. I've been doing some crazy shit. I'm a different person, different personality than I was 4 years ago. Night and day, and people can see it, and people have told me. And I am a danger to myself and others only because of my fucking brain, and it doesn't work, and my poor impulse control and my poor judgment, because I don't think things through properly, and you go to a doctor, they give you pills. You go to a psychiatrist, they tell you you're fucking crazy, So what's the answer? Hopefully I'll find out a little more, or at least get started on Tuesday. I feel like shit. I feel just like I did, worse than I did when I first got the long COVID. I got the achiness. I got the double vision, blurry vision. I'm tired. I have no energy whatsoever. My legs are like rubber. My brain doesn't work. Even though I'm talking and have kept a fairly good train of thought here, it's very difficult for me to keep a train of thought. I'm always losing direction. I can't even think of words. But anyway, it's been a mess. Thank God for Elisa. Her mom's still alive, although she's alert but unresponsive mostly. She's had a massive stroke, and so she could be like that for quite a while. So and the one time, and I might cry here, the one time in my life that I could be there for Lisa, after all she's done for me, all I've put her through, I couldn't even be there for her when she was called to her mom's deathbed because I was thrown in a mental hospital and wasn't allowed to talk to her. And I've got some role to play in that. I obviously fucked up somehow and said something I shouldn't have said or whatever, but I told him this is the hospital, you can fuck with me all you want, but don't fuck with my wife. Don't you ever fuck with my wife. She's the best person on earth. Excuse me for, okay, gain control. All right. She doesn't deserve that. She doesn't deserve that. And I'm fucking pissed. I'm talking to a lawyer in Jacksonville about the civil rights violations. I know they held me illegally. And I'm also talking to lawyers about malpractice on the place of the Mayo Clinic malpractice for putting me on a 72-hour hold when there was nothing psychologically wrong with me. When I came there for medical help, when I paid lots of money and rented an apartment to go tell them I'm going to kill myself, it's absolutely absurd. So there's malpractice at the Mayo Clinic and at River Point to behavioral health because they fucked up big time there. They held me against my will. They refused to give me access to my phone and my wife. Big time malpractice. So I don't give a shit about money. If they want to give me some money for all the problems they cause, fine. But I want to hold those fuckers accountable. If they can do this to me, they can do it to anybody, and it's got to stop. You just can't do this to people. You just can't, take away people's freedom for 8 days for no reason at all. This is the United States of America. This is the U.S. of A. What the hell is going on where they are able to do that and get away with it? So, yeah, I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore, Hopefully I'm going to get better starting Tuesday. But they got me pissed off, and I'm going to take it as far as I have to. Anyway, that gets you caught up on the saga of Big Al. It's been rough, and I don't see anything on the horizon that's gonna get better anytime soon. But hopefully Tuesday I can get it started, and hopefully get some kind of relief fairly soon for this, because I stopped playing golf end of June. So we're going, 9 months. I haven't picked up a golf club because I can't. Tried once. I played 3 holes and I had to walk off the course because I just couldn't do it. So eventually I'm going to do this, and it's all going to be professional. I'm going to have maybe an outline and maybe guests come on and talk about, I don't want to be talking all the time, but there's a lot of issues need to be addressed. For example, this kind of stuff, the way veterans are treated in general, the way the VA is so hard broke. And here's one that's really important to me is in the military, we learn how to self-medicate with alcohol. Okay, you can't go to a mental health. If you go to mental health, if you're anxious or depressed or crazy, your career is over. So nobody ever goes to the mental health and says, I'm anxious and depressed. Okay, so we learn how to self-medicate with alcohol. You can't smoke weed. Can't do any of that kind of stuff. So the only legal substance available to self-medicate with is alcohol. So most people in the military have experienced this, if not themselves, have seen other people self-medicate with alcohol, and that's what I learned to do. I use alcohol to help me sleep. I have trouble sleeping, and sometimes it gets to the point where I need the only thing that's going to get me to sleep is a bottle of booze, And the sad thing is that we can't tell the military that either. I never went to the doctor when I was in the military, said, hey, I got an alcohol problem, I'm self-medicating all the time, this isn't good. Nobody does that. Nobody in the military does that. But I'd say at least 50, if not 75% of people of veterans come out with alcohol problems. They've learned how to self-medicate with alcohol. And especially those, with PTSD and TBI and have been through all these horrific things. If you're in the military, the only way you get by is self-medicating with alcohol. However, since we don't report our anxiety and depression when we're on active duty, because we don't report our medicating while on active duty. There's nothing in our medical record saying that we have these problems. So the VA, when it comes time to do your disability rating, says, oh, doesn't exist. Never happened because it's not in your medical record. Okay. So there's hundreds of thousands of veterans out there that should be getting compensated for an alcohol abuse disorder or alcoholism, should be getting disability ratings for that, should be getting disability ratings for the psychological trauma, okay? I, for example, only started going to the doctor to see the psychologist at my last duty station because I knew I was not going to, I didn't want to go past 20 years. And I couldn't go past 20 years because I ended up getting asthma from a sick building and was non-deployable. That's another story. Fuck. But that's one thing I'm going to start fighting for, is for the rights of and for the disability ratings that all these veterans should be receiving for the mental health issues that they didn't report, and for the alcohol abuse and alcoholism that they didn't report, so does not exist according to the VA. That needs to be changed. That needs to be changed, and all of us veterans need to receive the compensation that we're due, the disability ratings that we're due because of our military service, because of the stress placed on us, because of the PTSD and the TBI and the anxiety and depression and the alcohol and so on and so forth. And that's my next fight. As soon as I start feeling better, is I want to fight for veterans to get the ratings for psychological issues and for alcohol abuse, alcoholism, that they should be getting from the VA, because the military is the one that caused all these problems, the PTSD, the anxiety, the depression, the alcoholism, the alcohol abuse. So that's my next goal. Anyway, like I said, once I get settled somewhere and I'm thinking clearly and life is a little bit better, I'd like to do a professional podcast, with the background and all the bells and whistles and guests and an outline. I could never stick to a script, but I'd like to do something much more professional than this. So stay tuned for Al's Garage, and the story behind that shortly. When I was at PSAB, Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia, I got there a month before 9/11 for a 1-year tour. I was a transportation squadron commander, and on PSAB, on the operational side, where all the jets and everything are, and where my mechanics and all my people were, there's a corner there, and then so the garage, my mechanics are right there on this corner, and there's a big rock outside, and so they nicknamed it Al's Garage, because the nearest town to Prince Sultan Air Base is a little town called Al-Kharj, and so it's kind of a takeoff on Al-Kharj. So Al's Garage. Well, when I became Transportation Squadron Commander, I became Big Al, and so that was my nickname, Big Al, when I was at PSAB, and hence the name of my podcast, Al's Garage. And I got some pretty cool stuff that I could show you in regard to that as well. So thanks for listening. Hope I'm not boring you. Hope I'm doing something positive. And I hope that I can start doing more positive things as I get better, with my wonderful and saintly wife, Elisa, by my side. Big Al, CT Sorrentino, signing off. Sayonara.